Have you ever wondered what life was really like in ancient Rome? We always hear about the emperors, the epic battles, and the gladiators. But what about the average person? How did they actually live their day-to-day lives? Forget the Hollywood epics for a moment, and let's take a journey back in time to see the real Rome, the one bustling with ordinary people, just like you and me. First, let's talk about who these people were. Rome wasn't just made of senators and generals. The city was a massive, sprawling metropolis, packed with over 1 million people from all walks of life. At the very top, you had the patricians, the wealthy, landowning aristocrats. Think of them as the 1%. They lived in lavish homes called domus, filled with beautiful mosaics, courtyards, and even private baths. Below them were the plebeians, the common citizens. This was the largest group, and it included everyone from merchants and artisans to soldiers and farmers. They were the backbone of the Roman economy. And at the very bottom were the slaves, who had no rights and were considered property. Their lives were incredibly hard, and they performed all the manual labor that kept the city running. This stark social divide shaped every aspect of Roman life. So, how did a typical day unfold for a Roman? For most, the day started early, at sunrise. Romans were early birds. A light breakfast, or ientaculum, might consist of bread dipped in wine or olive oil, and maybe some cheese or fruit. Then, it was off to work. For the plebeians, this meant heading to their workshops, market stalls, or construction sites. The workday was generally short by our standards, usually ending around noon. The wealthy patrician's morning was quite different. He would hold a sala where his clients, people who depended on his patronage, would come to his home to pay their respects and ask for favors. This was a crucial part of the Roman social and political network. After the morning's work was done, what did they do? This is where Roman life gets really interesting. The afternoon was dedicated to leisure and socializing. The number one destination was the public baths, or army. These weren't just places to get clean. They were massive social hubs. Think of them as a combination of a community center, a gym, and a spa. You could exercise, get a massage, swim, and most importantly, catch up on the latest news and gossip with friends. The baths were incredibly cheap, so almost everyone could afford to go. It was a place where different social classes could mingle, though the rich often had their own private sections. And of course, we can't talk about Roman life without mentioning the entertainment. The Romans loved their public spectacles. The Colosseum is famous for its gladiator contests, and yes, those were hugely popular. But that wasn't the only show in town. The Circus Maximus, a massive chariot racing stadium, could hold over 150,000 spectators. The chariot races were thrilling, fast-paced, and incredibly dangerous. People were fanatically devoted to their favorite teams, identified by colors like the reds, whites, greens, and blues. These events were more than just entertainment. They were a way for emperors to keep the population happy and distracted, a policy famously known as bread and circuses. Where did all of this happen? The heart of it all was the city of Rome itself, a place of incredible contrasts. You had the magnificent public buildings like the Colosseum, the Pantheon, and the Forums, all built with stunning marble and engineering genius. These were the symbols of Roman power and grandeur. But just around the corner, you'd find the residential areas, which were a different story. Most Romans lived in cramped, multi-story apartment buildings called insulae. These were often poorly built, dark, and extremely crowded. Fire was a constant danger, and sanitation was a major problem. There was no indoor plumbing for the poor, so they had to use public latrines or simply toss their waste into the streets. It was a noisy, smelly, and chaotic environment, a far cry from the serene villas of the rich. Now for the final and most important question: why did they live this way? What drove their society? A huge part of it was a concept called mos maiorum, which means the way of the ancestors. Romans had a deep respect for tradition, family, and social order. The patriarchal family structure, with the paterfamilias, or father of the family, holding absolute authority, was the bedrock of society. Religion also played a central role. Romans believed in a pantheon of gods and goddesses who influenced every aspect of their lives. They made daily offerings at household shrines and participated in large public festivals to keep the gods happy and ensure the prosperity of the state. Ultimately, Roman life was a complex balancing act between ambition and tradition, public duty and private pleasure, incredible luxury and extreme poverty. The world of ancient Rome was so much more than just emperors and armies. It was a vibrant, dynamic, and often chaotic world filled with real people living complex lives. From the crowded Insulate apartments to the magnificent public baths, from the morning work rush to the afternoon's thrilling chariot races, every day was an experience. Understanding their daily routines gives us a much richer, more human picture of this incredible civilization. It reminds us that behind the grand monuments and historical dates, there were millions of individual stories unfolding every single day. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed learning about the real ancient Rome, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into history. Let me know in the comments what other historical topics you'd like to explore. See you next time.